No one saw this coming. Not from Canada. Not after signing one of the most expensive fighter jet deals in its history. But now, quiet whispers are spreading through Ottawa, Washington, and NATO headquarters. Something about Canada's F-35 deal doesn't feel right. The country once proud to join the elite club of fifth-generation jet owners is starting to have second thoughts. This isn't just about money. It's about trust, and whether the world's most advanced fighter is really worth the price. Or if Canada just bought itself a problem painted in stealth gray. When Canada confirmed its decision to buy the F-35 Lightning II, it was presented as a leap into the future, a jet so advanced it could see the enemy before being seen. For decades, Canada's air power relied on the aging CF-18 Hornets. Proud but tired veterans of another era, they had guarded Arctic skies, flown with NATO, and fought ISIS, but time had caught up, so the government decided to replace them, spending nearly $19 billion for 88 F-35A stealth fighters. The headline celebrated, "Canada joins the stealth era." But behind the patriotic speeches, experts voiced concern. Was this really the right fit for Canada's defense needs? Some questioned the cost, others wondered if the F-35, a plane with a history of problems, was already showing cracks. The F-35 was marketed as untouchable, a flying supercomputer that could dominate any sky. But its journey from concept to cockpit was rough. Years of development brought software bugs, maintenance delays, and even ejection seat malfunctions. The US admitted the jet wasn't ready for full-scale production until 2023, almost 2 decades after its first flight. So when Canada joined, critics asked, are we buying the future or someone else's unfinished project? Then came the operating costs, around $40,000 per flight hour. The stealth coating needed special climate-controlled hangars, the software required constant updates. And here's the catch. Canada isn't fighting daily wars. Its main job is to patrol vast frozen airspace where radar coverage is limited. So why buy a jet designed for deep strike missions when the real task is intercepting Russian bombers over the Arctic? One defense expert called it buying a Ferrari to deliver the mail. Then came a quiet shift in thinking, not just in Canada, but across NATO. Countries like Sweden and Finland were proving that effective defense didn't require joining the trillion-dollar F-35 ecosystem. Sweden's Gripen E was becoming a symbol of smart defense. It was cheaper, easier to maintain, and built for cold, harsh conditions, exactly like Canada's. It could take off from a highway, refuel in minutes, and get back in the air fast. The F-35, on the other hand, needed specialized air bases, complex logistics, and access to US-controlled systems for everything from spare parts to software. That dependence made some Canadian officials uneasy. They began asking, are we gaining security or giving up independence? Because while the F-35 offers unmatched capability, it also ties Canada tightly to American infrastructure, a relationship that could limit Canada's own control over its fleet. By 2026, Canada was expecting its first F-35 deliveries, but delays started to appear, costs began creeping higher, and the jets Canada would receive were from an early production batch, meaning more software and hardware updates would be needed later. In other words, Canada would pay billions for aircraft that might take years to reach full capability. Meanwhile, other countries were moving faster. Finland's pilots were already training. Their deals were transparent, their costs stable. Back home, political tension grew. Opposition leaders began calling the F-35 a black hole for taxpayer money. Reports estimated long-term costs could exceed $70 billion when maintenance and upgrades are included. The question many Canadians were afraid to ask finally surfaced. Is Canada really ready for the F-35? Canada isn't alone. Even the US Air Force has admitted it can't afford to operate all of its F-35s regularly. Spare parts shortages have grounded squadrons for weeks. Norway reported maintenance backlogs. Japan suffered a tragic 2019 crash that exposed safety concerns. Across the world, militaries are realizing that the F-35's power comes with a price, not just financial, but logistical. Because when your fighter needs a specialist flown in from another continent just to get airborne, it raises a serious question: is it truly combat ready? While the world's biggest powers wrestle with complexity, smaller nations are showing another path. Sweden's Gripen E costs less than half the F-35 to operate per hour. It can be maintained quickly, even by ground crews with basic tools. Its software is open, not locked behind corporate walls. It's not as stealthy, but it's nimble, flexible, and built for survival. In modern warfare, where drones, cyber weapons, and hypersonic missiles redefine strategy, agility often matters more than invisibility. That's the kind of thinking now spreading in Canada's defense community. Because the future of air combat might not be about the most expensive jet, but the one that fits your mission. So, what does rethinking the deal mean? It doesn't mean canceling the F-35, not yet, but insiders say Ottawa is reviewing how it plans to use and maintain the fleet. Options include reducing the total number of jets, delaying deliveries until newer versions are available, or adopting a mixed fleet approach, using F-35s for high-risk missions and cheaper aircraft or drones for daily patrols. It's a practical idea. Canada's main challenges aren't overseas bombing campaigns. They're Arctic patrols, quick response interceptions, and NATO support missions. For those, flexibility and cost-effectiveness may matter more than stealth. In late 2024, internal reports quietly reached Parliament's Defence Committee. They warned of cost overruns, training delays, and software integration problems that could push full operational capability into the 2030s, meaning Canada might not have a fully combat-ready F-35 fleet for another decade. That's a hard truth for a country that's already spent billions. As those reports surfaced, public opinion began to shift. Analysts, pilots, even former officials started asking if the Gripen, or an upgraded Super Hornet, might have been the smarter choice. It wasn't about pride anymore, it was about practicality. Today, Canada hasn't backed out, but it's cautious. Negotiations with Lockheed Martin continue, but with tighter oversight and more transparency. Meanwhile, Sweden, Finland, and South Korea are earning respect for their independent defense strategies, focusing on adaptability instead of complexity. It's as if the global arms race has split in two, those chasing perfection and those mastering simplicity. And somewhere in between stands Canada, still deciding where it belongs. Because the F-35 isn't a bad jet, it's a technological marvel capable of unmatched precision and stealth. But that doesn't make it the right answer for every nation. Canada now faces a defining moment: stick with the dream or pivot to something smarter. Maybe that's the deeper story here. Power doesn't come from having the flashiest machines, it comes from understanding your mission and choosing what truly fits. While superpowers chase technological dominance, smaller nations are learning to be adaptable, self-reliant, and efficient. That might be the future of air power, not raw strength, but smart strategy. The F-35 promised air superiority, but as Canada is discovering, dominance comes with a cost, one that may not always be worth paying. So as new jets roll out across the world, Canada's choice will stand as a lesson in balance, a reminder that sometimes the smartest move isn't the loudest one. Because in a sky full of stealth and noise, one truth remains: Canada isn't just buying a jet, it's deciding what kind of nation it wants to be. Is the F-35 truly the answer to Canada's defense needs? Or just an expensive lesson in strategy? In the end, maybe it's not about flying the most powerful jet, but the one that makes the most sense.